That morning, the K-pop world looked calm. There was no rumble of controversy, no flashy news from the South Korean media. But behind the scenes, behind the glass walls of HYBE skyscraper in Yongsan, a big decision has been made. And BTS's Kim Taehyung aka V is at the center of an impending storm. V's solo album Layover is supposed to be a celebration of the artistic freedom, self-expression, and personal voice that have been hidden behind BTS's formation. But who would have thought the Layover actually became the source of an unprecedented internal crisis? Not because of its poor quality, quite the contrary, the album was praised globally. But for much darker reasons, conspiracies, jealousy, and the power of corporations that are ready to sacrifice one star in order to save fragile stability. Why does an album as beautiful as Layover feel like it never existed? In the eyes of HYBE's management, and who pulls the doll's rope from behind, making V seem to be a stepson in an empire built by BTS themselves. When the first teaser of Layover was released, ARMY's enthusiasm broke out like a summer storm. The intimate visuals, the soft V sound that caresses the ears with whispers of jazz and soul, the mature retro concept, it all feels like a whole new world. The world that Taehyung offers to his listeners is not just music, but pieces of his soul. But behind it all, there was something strange. There is no big promotion. There are no giant posters on CEX. There is no variety show. In fact, Layover did not get full support from HYBE's official social media as is usually done for other BTS releases. Music critics began to question, why does a release as beautiful as this seem quiet? Why does management seem awkward at the mention of this album? And why, in HYBE's internal press release, the name of this album was not even made a priority? Sources in the industry began to whisper. Some called the Layover an overly honest product. Taehyung, with his courage, rejected the instant pop formula that HYBE used to sell. He wanted to make something real, not just a TikTok trend. And this was the beginning of it all. In the world of K-pop, creativity is often framed by invisible boundaries, algorithms, market trends, and the expectations of a global fan base. When an idol is too creative, too independent, too free, then he is no longer an asset, but a risk. Layover is produced by Min Hee-jin, CEO of ADOR, who is known as the creative brain behind the concept of New Jeans. This collaboration was a dream come true for V and a nightmare for HYBE. Why? Because Hee-jin is not only a creator, but also a figure who dared to defect from HYBE's grip. And his presence behind the Layover was perceived as a signal of hidden rebellion. According to an unnamed insider, the collaboration did not get the full blessing of the top executives. There was a kind of cold tension between the internal units. One camp supported V's freedom of expression, while the other camp felt excluded and uninvolved. The tension was further heated when Layover actually get praise from abroad. But HYBE chose silence. They didn't promote the album aggressively, didn't set up a big showcase, and didn't even include V's songs in the internal playlist commonly used to encourage new releases. It was as if they wanted the album to fail slowly. A subtle sabotage. Planned silence. HYBE is a modern kingdom built from sweat, dreams, and fear. BTS is its center of gravity. But when its members start walking the solo path, the empire begins to falter, not because of a lack of talent, but because management is losing control. Taehyung is no ordinary member. It has a magnetic force that cannot be replicated. Her charisma isn't built from choreography or marketing strategy, it's from herself. From the look in his eyes, from the slow but smacking gesture, from his unmistakable voice. And HYBE knows that. That's why layovers are dangerous. When the music was released and created a new wave, HYBE see the potential that AV could be greater than the system, that he could grow beyond their control, that he, with all his simplicity, could create a new, unshakable loyalty without the need for the help of the company. Taehyung is too strong, said an insider. He didn't follow the plan. And in this industry, not following a plan is a great sin. When the music videos of Love Me Again and Rainy Days were released, the ARMY cheered. They were crying. They felt like they were seeing Taehyung's real face, not an idol, not a celebrity, but a human being speaking through a song. But they're also aware of something. Why is the promotion in such a hurry? Why isn't there a global countdown like Jimin or Jungkook's solo releases? Why does it seem that HYBE does not celebrate Layover achievements as they do for other projects? The fanbase is split. Some believe that this is just part of a new marketing strategy. But others, especially Taehyung's more sensitive fans, felt there was something bigger. Something's wrong. Some were deliberately detained. When the album was finally released in full, the sales figures were incredible. But even with that figure, the layover barely received official recognition from HYBE internals. No long praise posts. There are no major achievement highlights. And it was at this time that great theories began to emerge. HYBE subtly boycotted V. Not in a frontal way, but by slowly erasing its existence from the internal ecosystem. Behind the sweet-sounding smiles and congratulations, there is a silent command. Do not highlight the layover too much. Don't make him feel too big. It's not just about V. It's about HYBE, who is terrified of the stars that can shine without them. Okay. So we move on to chapters 6 and 7. This time the narrative will begin to reveal deeper internal conflicts between HYBE's management, the divisions within it, and the psychological pressure that V begins to feel. The atmosphere is getting tense and emotional. Kim Taehyung is not a dissident. He didn't come to fight. But the layover makes him look like a threat when he just wants to be true to himself. And it was precisely his honesty that made the entire power structure begin to crack. In the days leading up to the album's release, V was mentioned several times appearing moody in rehearsals. According to sources who have worked directly with him, the psychological pressure is getting stronger not because of the busy schedule, but because of the broken communication. Managers who were usually close suddenly keep their distance. HYBE's in-house creative team didn't have much input and wasn't even present at the main layover shoot. He is alone, the source said softly. The people around him were ordered to be silent. Not against, but not in favor either. That hurts more. The usually cheerful Taehyung turns quiet. When interviewed by international media, he kept smiling. But there was a long pause before answering. It's like choosing a safe word, not an honest one. And such is the fate of a silent rebel. He cannot shout. But the world knows, and the world feels the silence. One name that continues to resonate in the conspiracy surrounding the layover boycott is Min Hee-jin. He is a figure who has been branded wild in HYBE's structure, too creative, too independent, and too daring. His collaboration with V is not just a musical project. It was a form of silent resistance to the system. In various interviews, Hee-jin mentioned that she gave V room to breathe. He doesn't command, he doesn't direct, he just listens. And maybe that's what makes HYBE even hotter. Some internal parties feel eliminated. How is it that BTS members' solo projects, their most valuable assets, don't involve in-house producers, don't use HYBE's visual style, don't even go through a standard control process? Min Hee-jin is disrupting the ecosystem, said an executive who did not want to be named. He's too free. And that freedom is contagious to V. In an internal meeting leaked to an industry forum, a top official called the layover an anomaly that cannot be allowed to repeat itself. That sentence shook the fans. What does that mean? That this kind of freedom should be stopped? Is HYBE afraid that other members will follow in V's footsteps? If the layover is successful without the company's full support, what will happen to their control over the other artists?